live from International McNeil headquarters in beautiful Baja, Tustin. This is Professor Mark McNeil.
That's right, beautiful Baja, Tustin. These are intro bits. The first intro bit are the three pitfalls, they're logical fallacies. The first is association is causation. This, the correct name is post hoc ergo propter hoc, and this means after this, therefore because of this. That if event A is always followed by event B, you conclude that A causes B. And in fact, sequence doesn't tell you, doesn't indicate cause. It could be some unseen third thing here. It could be that sequence just isn't relevant. Every time I have a party, I go out and get some beer 2 or 3 hours before I have the party, and it turns out that going and getting beer doesn't cause me, normally, to have a party. So, that's the post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. The second is the fallacy of composition, which says what's good for the individual is necessarily good for everyone, or conversely, what's good for everyone is necessarily good for the individual. And of course, the classic example is sitting at the stadium watching the Angels at the Big A, and everybody's seated, you stand up, you get a better view. True. Therefore, you conclude everybody should stand up to get a better view. That's the fallacy of composition, and there's a lot of it. The third is ignoring secondary effects. And in economics, there's a rule. You can't just do one thing. That whatever you try and do, there will always be secondary, tertiary, quaternary effects, etc. So the point is that when you consider whether you should do something, whether something is a good idea or rational to do, you always have to count the marginal benefits against the marginal costs. We'll talk more about that in a second. But if the primary effects, the marginal benefits exceed the marginal costs, that's not a particularly good indication that it should be done, because oftentimes there are secondary effects that would cause whatever it is to not be a good idea to do. So there are lots and lots of examples of this. Economists oftentimes make their living kind of going after and looking for secondary effects and demonstrating that it wasn't such a good idea after all. The simplest one, I suppose, is long ago in good old Irvine, the police clamped down on kids buying alcohol. And sure enough, they stopped kids from buying so much alcohol, but then some guy at UCI went and checked and found that because the cost of alcohol had gone up, sure enough, the good effect was that people used less alcohol, young people. But then they asked, do they smoke more pot? And the answer was yes. So there's a trade-off a bit between reducing the amount of alcohol, which would have a secondary effect then of causing people to smoke more pot. So always consider the secondary effects and tertiary and so forth when you consider doing something. The second bit we're going to talk about is positive versus normative statements. Positive statements are attempts to describe what is in value-neutral terms, whereas normative statements are statements of what ought to be. These are subjective value judgments. Subjective, different for each individual based on their values. So you have to be clear about which statements are positive and which are normative. A positive statement doesn't necessarily have to be right. It can be, the test of a positive statement is it can be proven or it can be disproven. That's the test. So if I say the moon is made out of green cheese, that can be tested. We'll send something up there, check, and see if it's made out of green cheese. So even if it's wrong, it is still a positive statement because it can be tested, it can be proven or disproven. Whereas a normative statement cannot be proven or disproven because it depends on individual value judgments. So, long sleeve shirts are better than short sleeve t-shirts. Red is better than blue. Red wine is better than white wine. These are all subjective value judgments that cannot be proven or disproven. There is the issue of opinions. I believe that some opinions can be proven or disproven, and some opinions cannot be proven because they're based on value judgments. So any opinion that can be proven or disproven, even though it's an opinion, is still a positive statement. If you go play on the freeway on Friday afternoons, you're liable to get hurt. That's my opinion. Well, that's a positive statement. Go play on the freeway. We'll see if you get hurt or not. So that's the second of the intro bits. The first, pitfalls of correct thinking, positive versus normative. And the third is marginal analysis. Marginal means additional, incremental, decremental, additional, subtractional, a little more, a little less. And when you make decisions, you always compare the added benefits of that particular action to the added costs of that particular action, and you only do it if the marginal benefits exceed the marginal costs, and you don't if not. So you maximize when you do all of the actions for which the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost and none for which the marginal cost exceeds the marginal benefit. So any particular activity, how many car dealerships to visit before you buy a car? Well, when you go visit the first car dealership, that's one, the quantity of car dealerships, one. Let's say you get 225 units of benefit. You get a lot of information very quickly, very cheaply by visiting one. You can get the manual to see what color and so forth. And the costs are fairly low in the sense that there's probably a dealership locally and you don't have to plan it. You can just do it on your way to home from work or something. So the costs are only 23 units of cost. But if you visit a second dealership, how many additional units of benefit do you get? You're not going to get an additional 225. You may only get an additional 150 units of benefit. You've already got a good bit of information. You're not getting all that much more. But this dealership is further away, and it might cost you 40 units of cost because you have to drive further and plan it more and so forth. The third unit of third dealer, you only get, we'll say, 75 units of benefits, but now 60 units of cost because you get to drive to the next city and so forth. The fourth gives you 50, but the costs may be 75. You would want to do this one, and this one because the marginal benefits exceed the marginal costs, but this one you would not do. You would not do this fourth one because the marginal costs outweigh the marginal benefits. It would not be profitable. So this is a very simple look at applying marginal benefits to marginal costs. You make rational decisions when you do that. How many classes to take this semester? Every additional class gives you additional marginal benefits. Every additional class costs you more in terms of time lost, money costs, the fact that you can't work, you can't see friends, you can't stay home and watch the Kardashians. So as you get more and more classes, the first class, the second class, third class, and the fourth class, you get the same sort of pattern. The marginal benefits of additional classes tend to go down, probably, whereas the marginal costs tend to go up. And you take it to the balance point. Marginal costs and marginal benefits are subjective. They're different for each individual person. So the same person looking at how many car dealerships to visit before they buy a car would find the number to be different depending on their own specific circumstances. So those are the three intro bits for now. That's it.